Memorial Day by Trudi Trueit, illustrated by Ronnie Rooney. Chapter 1. The United States and freedom for which it stands, the freedom for which they died, must endure and prosper. Their lives remind us that freedom is not bought cheaply. It has a cost. It imposes a burden. Ronald Reagan, 1911 to 2004, Memorial Day speech, 1982. Some gave all. Row after row of small U.S. flags stretched across the cemetery. Each one stands next to the grave of an American soldier. People walk quietly among the flags. Some stop to lay flowers on the gravestones. Today is the last Monday in May. It is Memorial Day in the United States. A memorial is a lasting tribute. It helps us to remember an important person, group, or event in history. Memorial Day was created to honor the brave people who were killed fighting in U.S. wars. It is the nation's promise that those who died in the line of duty will never be forgotten. Union soldiers were from the North. They wore blue uniforms. Confederate soldiers were from the South. They wore gray uniforms. Chapter 2. A Nation Divided. In the mid-1800s, slavery was tearing the United States apart. Southern states felt slavery should be legal. The North disagreed. Many states in the South went so far to form a new country called the Confederate States of America. This led to the Civil War, 1861 to 1865. Friends and family from different parts of the United States often found themselves on opposite sides of the war. Sometimes they had to fight each other, brother against brother, father against son. In these sad times, women in the South began decorating the graves of Southern Confederate soldiers with flowers. They decorated the graves of Northern Union soldiers too. In 1865, the North finally won the war. The United States remained a single nation. Even so, it was hard for those in the North to celebrate. More than 600,000 soldiers have been killed. Never before or since then have so many Americans died in one war. What a cruel thing is war, to separate and destroy families and friends and mar the purest joys and happiness God has granted us in this world. To fill our hearts with hatred instead of love for our neighbors and to devastate the fair face of this beautiful world. Robert E. Lee, 1807 to 1870, Confederate General. That we were highly resolved that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Abraham Lincoln, 1809 to 1865, Gettysburg Address, 1863. Chapter 3. Decoration Day. After the Civil War, Americans looked for a special way to honor their fallen war heroes. Military leaders remembered how Southern women had decorated the graves of soldiers on both sides. In the spring of 1868, Union General John Alexander Logan declared that each May 30th should be a day to remember those who had died in the Civil War. He called it Decoration Day. The first national celebration was held at Arlington National Cemetery in Virginia. Arlington is a military cemetery near Washington, D.C. On November 19, 1863, President Abraham Lincoln gave a speech at Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. He was there as part of a dedication to the new soldiers' cemetery. The ceremony honored those who had died in the Civil War battles there that summer. Today, the place is called Gettysburg National Cemetery. Both the cemetery and Lincoln's speech are now famous tributes to the fallen soldiers. People placed flowers on the graves of thousands of Union and Confederate soldiers. They gave speeches and sang patriotic songs. By the 1890s, Decoration Day was more commonly known as Memorial Day. The 30th of May, 1868 is designated for the purpose of strewing with flowers or otherwise decorating the graves of comrades who died in defense of their country during the late rebellion and whose bodies now lie in almost every city, village, and hamlet, churchyard in the land. John A. Logan, 1826 to 1886. Chapter 4, Flowers for the Fallen. During World War I, 1914 to 1918, thousands of U.S. soldiers died on the battlefields of Europe. Often, the first wildflowers to sprout on a field after a battle were poppies. These bright red flowers soon became a symbol for fallen soldiers. In 1918, a teacher from Georgia named Mona Michael read a poem from the poppy fields. She decided to wear a silk poppy on Memorial Day to pay tribute to Americans killed in the war. Mona began making and selling poppies. She donated the money to veterans groups. After World War I, Memorial Day was expanded to honor all Americans in the armed forces who died in wartime. In 1971, the U.S. Congress made Memorial Day a national holiday. It was moved to the last Monday in May. Over time, Mona Michael's poppy sales raised more than $200 million for veterans groups in the United States and England. In 1948, the U.S. Post Office honored her by putting her portrait on a stamp. Chapter 5. On Memorial Day, every ship in the U.S. Navy and all naval stations fire a 21-gun salute at noon, celebrating Memorial Day. Many Americans visit a cemetery or war monument on Memorial Day. They may attend a ceremony where veterans speak, a band plays, and the military fires a 21-gun salute. Boom! Each year, thousands of people travel to Arlington National Cemetery. They listen to the President of the United States give a speech. The President also lays a wreath at the Tomb of the Unknowns. The Tomb of the Unknowns holds the remains of several unidentified American soldiers from different wars. They represent all Americans who died for their country. A soldier always guards the tomb, always. In 2000, the U.S. Congress created a national moment of remembrance on Memorial Day. At 3 p.m. on the holiday, Americans are asked to stop what they are doing to remember the nation's fallen soldiers. In this moment of silence, what will you think about? They defended our nation, they liberated the oppressed, they served the cause of peace, and all Americans who have known the loss and sadness of war, whether recently or long ago, can know this. The person they love and miss is honored and remembered by the United States of America. George W. Bush, 1946 to present, Memorial Day Address, 2004. Chapter 6. The colors of the United States flag. White stands for purity and innocence. Red stands for valor and hardiness. Blue stands for vigilance, perseverance, and justice. Stars and stripes forever. The U.S. flag is an important part of Memorial Day. It is tradition to lower the flag to half-staff until noon on the holiday as a sign of respect. People wave flags during Memorial Day parades, speeches, and concerts. Scout, troops, military groups, and citizens place small flags on the graves of American soldiers. Did you know that there are more than 300,000 military graves at Arlington's National Cemetery? Each one gets its own flag. It's a custom called Flags In. Soldiers from the 3rd U.S. Infantry place the flags in the ground. They keep a 24-hour watch during the weekend before Memorial Day to make sure none of the flags fall. Why do they do this? Because throughout history, more than 1 million men and women have died protecting the freedoms, land, and people for which the U.S. flag stands. The 3rd U.S. Infantry is also known as the Old Guard, and for good reason. It's the oldest active duty unit in the Army. The Old Guard got its start back in 1784. I only regret that I have but one life to lose for my country. Nathan Hale, 1755 to 1776, American Patriot. Chapter 7. To preserve the peace, we must never forget the sacrifices that have paved the way to peace. Bill Clinton, Memorial Day Address, 2000. Poetry Corner, The Blue and the Gray. By the flow of the inland river, whence the fleets of iron have fled, where the blades of the grave grass quiver, asleep on the ranks of the dead. Under the sod and the dew, waiting the judgment day, under the one, the blue, under the other, the gray. Francis Miles Finch, 1827-1907. The poem In Flanders Fields remembers the soldiers who died in World War I. Mona Michael's idea for silk poppies came from the poppies mentioned in this poem. In Flanders Fields. In Flanders Fields the poppies blow, between the crosses row and row, that mark our place, and in the sky, the lark still bravely singing fly. Scars heard amid the guns below. We are the dead short days ago. We lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders Fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe, from failing hands we throw. The torch be yours to hold it high, if ye break faith with us who die. We shall not sleep through poppies grow in Flanders Fields. John McCrae, 1872-1918, Canadian doctor. We shall keep the faith. O you who sleep in Flanders Fields, sleep, sweet too, rise anew. We caught the torch you threw, and holding high we keep the faith with all who died. We cherish too the poppy red that grows on fields where valor led. It seems to signal to the skies that blood of heroes never dies, but lends a luster to the red of the flower that blooms above the dead in Flanders Fields. Mona Michael, 1869-1944. Chapter 8. The Battle Hymn of the Republic that's often sung on Memorial Day. Julia Ward Howe wrote the words to the song while visiting the Capitol during the Civil War. Songs on Memorial Day, Battle Hymn of the Republic. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. He hath loosed the faithful lighting of his terrible swift sword. His truth is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on. Words by Julia Ward Howe, 1819-1910. Taps is usually played on a bugle or trumpet. It is traditional music used at funerals honoring soldiers. Taps. Fading light dims the sight, and a star gems the sky gleaming bright. From afar drawing nigh falls the night. Day is gone, gone the sun. From the lake, from the hills, from the sky, all is well, safely rest. God is nigh. Words and music by Major General Daniel Butterfield, 1831-1901. The Star-Spangled Banner. Oh, say, can you see, by the dawn's early light, what so proudly we held at the twilight last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous flight, o'er the ramparts we watched, were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. Words by Francis Scott Key, 1779-1843. Francis Scott Key wrote the words to the Star-Spangled Banner in 1814. The poem celebrated American victory over the British in the War of 1812. It did not become the national anthem until 1931. Joining in the spirit of a Memorial Day. Do you have any relatives or ancestors who died in the line of duty? If so, interview family members and search through scrapbooks and photo albums to find more about these people. Visit a cemetery where soldiers are buried. Look for graves that have not been decorated. Place flowers or flags next to them to pay your respects. Do you have a parent or grandparent that is a veteran? Ask them about their wartime experiences. How do they celebrate the holiday? Spend Memorial Day visiting a local or national war monument. Learn about the war it represents and learn about the people who gave their lives in battle. On Memorial Day, remember to pause for a moment of silence at 3 p.m. to honor fallen soldiers. Attend a Memorial Day service, parade, or concert. Wear a poppy. Get your friends to wear one too.